Hello one and all. Today we've received a bunch of new details surrounding the new GVG mode that will be coming to IMR this month. And so in this video I'm going to be breaking down the new content to give you guys an idea of what to expect from the game mode, and I'm going to do it in the quickest, most efficient and simplest way I can. And then after that I'll let you know what I think about the content, as well as some questions and other random tidbits I have about how it might work. So let's start with the basics. The content is called Glory Battlefield, and it's a new GVG mode that will take place in addition to the current standard Guild vs Guild content. It is cross-server content, which means it will not be limited by the division system. We should see all guilds in the game competing on the same ladder. To participate, a guild must have at least 4 members, and this is because each guild will be split up into teams of 4 or 5 people. So if you have a guild of 30 people, you'll probably have 6 teams of 5 people. In this content you will use 3 teams of heroes, just like standard GVG and advanced arena, and those teams will be used for both attack and defense, also like in GVG. But here is where it starts getting a little more complex. To begin, there will be placement matches to determine who you'll be fighting. This will be so that new players don't fight against the strongest players in the game, just a way to ensure that people are fighting others of similar skill levels. In the notes it says multiple battles can be conducted daily and that the highest damage will be recorded. Now, it isn't super clear what this means, but I'm assuming it will be standard PvP fights for the placement. That will give you an initial rank, and the amount of damage you inflict in these fights will determine that somehow. After the placement matches are done, the main show commences. Now, the meat of the content consists of 2 stages that will take place every day until the mode is completed. The first is called Battle Stage 1 and involves placing your 3 lineups in separate battlefields where you and your teammates will face off against the lineups of opposing teams. Now, as there are 3 battlefields and you put 1 lineup in each, this means that this stage will not involve 3v3 fights where you can switch around who fights who. Instead, it will be multiple 1v1 classic arena style fights. You will then run around like you do in a space temple and pick as many enemies as you want in your battlefield to fight. But it's important to know that also, like in a space temple, your heroes will not be healed or revived if they die in between fights. If all of your heroes die, then that team will not be able to fight anymore until they are revived for the second phase, which happens later on. It is worth noting, however, that if you don't want to fight an opponent, you can choose to move them to the center of the arena, and your teammates can come help you and fight them instead on your behalf. Now, depending on the amount of fights that you win, you will receive points. And at the end of phase 1, the 2 teams with the most points will advance to the second phase. If there is a tie between 2 teams, however, then the 2 team captains will face in an automatic battle to determine who goes through. So that is the entirety of Battle Stage 1. So what is Battle Stage 2? Well, this will be a battle royale between all the players from each of the 2 remaining teams, and they will be automatic battles. I believe it will be similar to the final stages of Championship, where the AI completes the fights for you, and whichever player comes out on top will win that day for their team. To determine the ranking for the rest of the teams, points will be added up for all of the victories over the course of the day. The highest will come second, then third, etc, etc. And that is basically it for the mechanics of the game mode. This process, minus the placement fights, will then repeat every day until the mode is over. Presumably, the teams that keep winning will climb higher up the rankings, and so the next day they'll fight tougher teams, and the teams that lose will fall down, and the next day they will fight easier teams. So now that we know how the content works, here are some of my personal thoughts and questions. In phase 1, as you can choose which battlefield gets which of your lineups, you'll want to coordinate with your teammates so that you don't all end up putting the same teams in the same places. If everyone put a cleave team in battlefield 1 and the enemy has a bunch of anti-cleave in that same battlefield, you're probably not going to have a good time. I also find the mechanic that lets you put an opponent you don't want to fight in the middle for your teammates to battle very interesting. It isn't mentioned in the announcement, but I would assume that there's a limit to the amount of times you could do this. Otherwise, you could just put everyone in the middle and let the strongest person on your team deal with them. It's also worth noting that the strongest person on your team will want to be the team captain, just in case of a potential tiebreaker situation at the end of Phase 1. I'm also very curious to know how the Battle Royale works at the end of Phase 2. If during these automatic battles one of your hero lineups loses a fight, does it die permanently like in Phase 1? Or is it a series of fresh 3v3s until a single winner is left? I'd hope it's like the former, or it could mean that one strong player on each team could just carry everyone through the entire content, and that would really diminish the teamwork aspect. You don't want one person to be able to do all of the content in this sort of thing. It would just be stupid. But the main thing I'd like to know at the moment is how exactly have they made this guild versus guild content. Now I know that each team of 4 or 5 is fighting teams from other guilds and not their own, but I'm hoping that the final leaderboard and rewards aren't just for individual teams, but instead combines the points of every team and adds them all up so that it's a guild effort. This will encourage guilds to split their strength across all of the teams, and it will be important for all the teams to be successful if you want to get that #1 spot. My worry is if they don't do this and ranking and rewards are instead just based on individual teams, then guilds are going to put their 5 strongest players in one team, and the other teams in a guild will all suffer as a result. With even teams, there'll be a lot more strategy, it'll be a lot more interesting, and I think the content really could be incredible. So hopefully DH think the same thing, and that's what they've got in mind. Otherwise, you might even have the chance of inter-guild drama, as people might get upset about not being in the strongest team, especially if the rewards are distributed based on team ranking rather than overall guild performance. So yeah, if they emphasise the guild and the teamwork aspect of Glory Battlefield, I think that this game mode will be a lot of fun, and I am really looking forward to giving it a spin. I hope this has been helpful for you all guys. Please let me know what you think about the new game mode in the comments, or any questions you might have for me, and I'll do the best to answer them all, as well as carry any good feedback that you might have to the dev team, because they are looking to improve this based on our thoughts as well. As always, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Good night, and God bless.